Hey guys, it's LEGO Boys E3. Today I'm going to show you how to solve the Master Pyraminx. So today will be a quick tutorial on how to solve this 4x4 Pyraminx, and I'm going to be basing a lot of what I say in this video off of the normal Pyraminx. So if you don't already know how to solve a normal Pyraminx, I would suggest going and learning that first before you try and solve this one. But anyway, let's get started. And so as we're scrambling this up, just make sure that you know this is going to take a lot of intuitive knowledge of moving pieces around. Like if you want to get a piece over to here, you have to know to be able to move this piece over here, move it up to the right spot, and move it back to where it originally was. Things like that, pretty much what you do with the Pyraminx beginners method. Like if you know how to solve a Pyraminx intuitively, it's pretty much like that. So to begin, it's pretty simple. You're only going to be dealing with one type of piece, and that type of piece is this piece right here. Just kind of like the center edge, like this. These are like the outer edges. This is like the center piece. These are like the tip kind of pieces. This is the center edge. This is the only one you have to be concerned about. So it's these pieces on every side. So like these three right in the middle here. And so to begin, we're going to be solving these 6 edge pieces. There's one here, 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 etc. Just like a normal Pyraminx. So just like you would normally solve a Pyraminx, we're going to be solving these edge pieces. And it doesn't really matter how you line up these center pieces. It does matter that this edge piece is in the right place relative to the center, but you can actually turn the centerpiece, rotate it in place without moving the edge. And so basically what that means is when you're doing a turn like this, all it's really going to affect is kind of these top center pieces, which don't really matter. But if you want to actually move these edge pieces around, like we're going to be solving in the Pyraminx, you want to do kind of a deeper turn like this, as opposed to like this. And so for fun, let's just do kind of like a layer by layer solve. So we'll start off with one edge piece right here, maybe move that relative to the correct centerpiece like this. Again, it doesn't really matter the orientation of the centerpiece as long as it's next to the correct edge. Find the next centerpiece that it needs to go next to. Here it is right here. Move that, align that into place. Here we go. There's kind of the row, and we'll make yellow our bottom layer so that these are the 3 edge pieces that we're putting in right now. Yeah, here we go. Put that one in just like normal Pyraminx, and then this one's flipped, and we can put it in just like that. We can also rotate this top centerpiece. Again, it doesn't really matter the orientation, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to line it up like that. And then finally, the last layer, looks like we can line up one of these edges right here. And then these two just happen to be flipped in place, but that's just a normal case that I can get on a Pyraminx, and I can solve it using the normal Pyraminx algorithm. So if any of that looked confusing to you, it's just a Pyraminx. You just want to solve these 6 edge pieces just like a Pyraminx, and also make sure they're around the right centerpieces. Now if you haven't already, go ahead and line up these centerpieces just like this, just kind of making them so they're the same relative to these pieces like this. And you can also solve the tips at this point too. You could do that at the beginning, you could do it at the very end. It doesn't really matter, I'm just going to do it right now. And there we go, now we should have all of these kind of outer centerpieces with the tips done, as well as these kind of inner middle edges. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solve these kind of centerpieces just right in the very middle of every single side. And so you might already have them all solved from your Pyraminx solve. You might have them like this where 4 of them are wrong, or you might have it so 3 of them are wrong. But usually I get a case where I have 4 of them wrong. And so in this case what we want to do is hold it so 2 of them that need to be flipped, they'll always be like 2 of them like this, and 2 of them like this. Hold it so 2 of them that need to be flipped with each other are in the front and on the bottom. And now we just want to do kind of like a sledgehammer, so R prime, L, R, L prime, and do that 3 times. 3 times, and there we go, now it is solved. Now if you happen to get a case where one of them is solved and these other 3 over here are not solved, that's pretty easy. All you have to do is hold it so they're all kind of on this right face right here. And we just kind of do like a little sequence of moves. It's not quite an algorithm, although you may use this as an algorithm on the normal Pyraminx if you know a certain method. But what it's going to be is pretty much just doing R, U, R prime U. And do that twice. R, U, R prime U. And there we go. So it switched around these centerpieces, but it actually did not solve them. And in addition to that, it also messed up this top centerpiece, but that's no problem. We can just move it back into place. But this isn't quite solved yet, and so we can just do that one more time. R, U, R prime, U, R, U, R prime, U. And there we go. Now all the centers are solved, and again, we can just move that back into place, and there you go. And so those two cases aren't really algorithms that you really need to memorize. It's just kind of doing a basic trigger like R prime U, or just like a sledgehammer just a couple of times in a row. So it's very basic and very simple, and you should just be able to do it kind of like muscle memory. Okay, and so now all we really have left is these kind of like outer edge pieces, and this is where the kind of basic intuitive Pyraminx method comes into play. And so you're going to want to be able to do something like, say I want to get this piece up to here. And so in order to do that, you can just look at the cube and say, hey, I want to move it up to there. And then I want to substitute this piece over, just kind of hide it, move the original side back down, and then move the second side back down. And there we go, it got right into place. Note that you can also move a piece like right here, right up to a slot right next to it. And you can basically just do that by moving it into the right spot, moving this over, down, and back down. But those two cases should be pretty familiar for you if you're kind of used to the basic beginner's intuitive way of solving a Pyraminx. And so now we can go ahead and get on to the next step. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to choose this yellow side as my last side. And so that means that we're going to be doing this kind of tip first. And so what we're going to be doing is solving these 3 edge pieces on the tip. And then we're going to be solving all of these opposite layer edge pieces. And then finally we'll finish it off by doing these 3 middle layer ones. Okay, so to begin these 3 edge pieces, so it's pretty basic, you just do it one at a time. You just kind of look around the cube, find a piece that needs to go in one of these slots. In this case, I see this one needs to move right over to here. So we can move it up into place, move this over, back, and there we go, now it is in the right place. So we can do it with another piece like this one. Note that this piece is not the correct piece at all. It looks like it's just flipped around in place, but it actually needs to move all the way over to here. And so yeah, just know that these 2 pieces right here and right here, even though the colors are the same, they are actually technically different pieces. And so the piece that would go into this slot would actually be this one right here. And so there's actually no direct way of moving it right up to the correct slot like this. But I note that I can move it like this. I can move it up to this slot. And so what I can actually do is move the slot over into that correct spot. Then I can move it up, back over, and back down. I just kind of did an extra setup move there, and it just kind of worked out. Okay, and so before I show you how to get that third and final piece in, it's actually a little bit trickier than the first 2. I'm just going to show you those first 2 again. And so we'll start off with this piece over here. So we can just kind of look around the cube and try and find that piece. Here's one right here, but this is actually not the correct piece because it goes in backwards. This piece actually belongs over here. So we can just find the correct one, which happens to be down here. So I'm just going to look around and see what I can do. Actually, another way of doing it is you actually move the piece itself, doing a setup move, and then you can put the piece into place just like this. And then you can undo that first setup move, and we have the piece in. Now this one going up here, it kind of looks like we can put it in, but there's actually no easy way of doing it. And so instead we'll have to kind of make something up. Like let's say we move this slot over to here, move this piece up, move it back over and back down. And make sure when you're doing a turn like that, putting this piece up here, that you don't mess up the piece that you already have, like up here. We don't want to bring that piece back down to the bottom layer because we just put it there. And so instead, make sure you turn it to an empty slot and bring it back down. Now the problem comes with the very last piece because, let's say it's right here. The problem comes because when you move it up to the top layer to put it in, there are no empty slots to replace it with. And so instead, we're going to have to do something kind of like keyhole. And so if you know the keyhole method on the Pyraminx, this should be pretty familiar to you. If you don't, well then you just kind of have to follow along. But pretty much instead of moving the piece up to the slot, we're going to bring the slot down to the piece. And so basically what I mean by that is, let's say we'll do a setup move so that we can move this slot down to here. And that'll make it so when we do a turn to move this piece, we can actually get it right into the slot. So again, I'm doing kind of a setup move. This move doesn't matter at all. And then I'm going to bring this whole side down, so to bring the slot down to where the piece is. So I'm bringing the slot down, doing a single turn, and bringing it back up. And now it's in the correct spot. A slightly more simple example of this would be if you're trying to put the correct piece into this slot right here. Again, this piece is not correct. This is actually kind of the mirror of this piece that needs to go over here. So the actual correct piece is actually over here. And so what you want to do is, instead of moving the piece up, like maybe like this, up into the correct slot, what we want to do is bring the slot down next to where the edge already is. And so we can do that by simply moving this down over here, moving the edge piece into place, and moving it back up. And then we can just undo the initial setup move right there. And like most intuitive things, just keep in mind that this process is completely intuitive and you kind of just have to do it yourself. There's no hard defined algorithms like you have to move this side and this side in this exact way. You just kind of have to figure it out for yourself, just moving a piece up to here, moving a slide over, and moving it back down. There's no defined algorithms, you just kind of have to move the pieces around as you see them. And so this next step is pretty similar, so I'm going to be going a bit faster. And so we already have these 3 edges down up here. And so what we need to do is solve these other 6 edge pieces down here. And so what we do is find a piece that we want to put in. So let's maybe put something in this slot. Let's find the correct piece that needs to go into there. I think it's this one. This piece needs to go over to here. And we just kind of imagine in our heads, try and find a good way to do that. I think if I were to do something like this, just kind of like as a setup move, bring the piece up to there, back down and back down. There we go. Yeah, we got it into the correct spot. Maybe moving this piece up, this piece over to here, I mean. Maybe we can do that like kind of the same way, like that. Yeah, there we go. It's all intuitive from here. We have to move this piece over to here. Let's maybe move the slot over to here, bring this piece down, make sure there's an empty slot, and bring it back up. And then finally, we have a couple of pieces right here. So to get this piece in, maybe I'll do a setup move just to kind of get it out of the way of where it needs to be. I'll move this slot back over and bring it back up, and there we go. And then this final piece, let's see, let's just move it over here, move the slot over there, move the piece up into the right spot, move that back down, and move that back down. And so if you are really lucky like me, you might have the entire Pyraminx solved at this point. But in most cases, you'll have something more like this. And so you may actually recognize this case from the normal Pyraminx. It's actually pretty similar to a case that you can get. And it actually kind of goes along with that algorithm that I showed you earlier, where you move a piece up, over, down, over, kind of R, U, R prime U. But instead of doing R like this, we're actually just going to do R on this outer layer. And so what we're going to do is just R, big U, like turn the entire layer like that, R prime, U, R, U, R prime, U. There we go. We actually didn't need to do that last U move. It actually moved these 3 edge pieces around, but we actually couldn't notice because it's still unsolved. So we can just do it one more time. We go from U, and I can just tell it's about to be solved. There we go. And so you can just do the algorithm once or twice, and it will solve your cube. If you want to get a little bit faster, you can learn the inverse of that algorithm, doing R, U prime, R prime, U prime. Just kind of like doing U prime moves instead of U. And that will solve the opposite case of just doing it like this. But I don't really know those cases. I don't really need to know them because I don't want to be fast at this cube. You can also use the inverse for when you're doing it like this. But again, I don't really care about that. That is how you solve the 4x4 Pyraminx. Again, it just borrows a lot of intuitive concepts from the regular Pyraminx. And so yeah, it's just kind of a lot of intuitive ideas, a lot of being able to think of moving pieces around, doing setup moves, things like that. It's very intuitive, and it is quite a simple puzzle. But if you are having any troubles with this method, go ahead and leave me a comment down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get back to you about how to fix it. Be sure and be descriptive about what your problem is. Don't just say, help, it won't work. Tell me like what step you're on, the cases you're getting, things like that, and I'll be sure to get back to you and help you. But that's pretty much it for this video, and I'll see you guys next time.